All right, hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to a Tuesday night, June 18th, 2024. It's about 10:41 in the PM here, West Coast time, California. Latest activity on the earthquake 3D globe there shows a 1.7 earthquake into the Texas area. There in the red flag, and also 1.3 there along the west coast. But notice a little bit of activity stretching out here across the areas of the eastern portion of the country. Got a little bit of swarming going on here down in the North Carolina region. We did have a couple earthquakes down there, 2.3 and a 2.3 early this morning, 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. Now we got a 1.6 here across the mountain range there in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains. I've never been out there, but I do want to check that out one of these days. Of course, all this activity occurring and include not only this activity, but further activity up here across New Hampshire area and the New Madrid seismic zone occurring following a couple days of intense swarming out here across the Texas area. So the North American plate out here right now, quite a bit of stress out here, hitting all these oil fields, hitting various fault systems out here as well, including the Oklahoma area up here where we did see a 3-pointer coming in to the Red Rock area, about 7 kilometers deep here for this quake. It does look like it's just off of this Sooner Lake area. I know the Sooners, right? Let's see what we got here for satellite view real quick. It's obviously underneath this area. I don't know. There's some type of plant out here. I don't know if this is a hydrothermal plant, some type of plant out here. Obviously, there could be some oil fields, wastewater disposal facilities out here and whatnot there in Oklahoma in this area. Really not seeing anything showing up here on the map as far as mentioning of the names. But, you know, it's getting hit out here a little bit, it looks like. There's quite a few oil fields up north near the Otwine oil field, it looks like. And a whole bunch up here. Anyway, these weak areas in the crust are getting hit across the areas of the south, and that is leading to strain out here across this area of the eastern portion of the country. Again, a little bit of activity out in the North Carolina region, and one earthquake there early this morning in the Haverhill, New Hampshire area, a little 2.6. So keep an eye here on the west coast. I'm going to leave up the earthquake watch here for tonight just due to this elevated activity that's stretching out here. Look at California up here. That's quite a bit of earthquake activity stretching all across the state. Of course, got to watch the Cascadia subduction zone, right? What goes on inland is associative of what's going on out here across this major subduction zone. We wouldn't have all these earthquakes out here unless we didn't have the activity out here, the subduction zone itself, and of course the plate boundary down south here. So off the Cascadia, we did see that 2.6 there early this morning. On that note, let me double check here the tremor map here tonight. Stand by for a second. 300 epicenters of tremor, going down slightly in terms of the multitude accounts here. But overall, this is still a consistent event, and it's been going on here for, it looks like it kicked up right around the 21st of June. We're coming up here on almost about 30 days. So we're at, let's see what we got for a number right here. 11,292 epicenters of tremor, mainly across the southern end, but we are starting to fill in. You notice that if we look at the last week of activity, you kind of see that the majority of the quakes here have been away from Northern California and more located there across the entire length there of the Cascadia subduction zone. So, you know, it's either way something we got to watch still, because it's continuing. It definitely could be leading to something. It could just be leading to, just these tremor counts. But either way, tremor activity does lead to further strain upstream. And we did see that earthquake here right smack dab, well, just right prior to the Cascadia subduction zone this morning. And, That's an obvious sign of some strain out here. Not to mention the inland earthquake activity that we're seeing there in Northern California, underneath this area here. Hornburg, California, seen that earthquake 1.6 earlier this evening. Deep earthquake underneath Northern California, 33 kilometers deep, associated with the extreme southern end of the Cascadia, 2.1, and various other earthquakes out here in Northern California, all associated there with the subduction zone just offshore, the mega thrust area, right? One of these days, that thing is going to produce a whopper of an earthquake. I just hope we're all prepared for it. Mount St. Helens, small amount of earthquake activity up there. Really nothing major going on there for now. You got to think about the volcanoes as well, right? That's all got to do with the Cascadia subduction zone as well. So it's possible, we could start seeing some of these volcanoes light up out here across the Cascades. Mount St. Helens, maybe Mount Shasta. Who knows? Since all the tremor activity is occurring down here, got to remember that that slab of plate here goes way down there and eventually melts and comes up to the surface there through volcanoes. So, yeah, we'll continue to keep an eye on it, obviously. Further down south into the southern portion of the state of California, handful of earthquakes up and down the area on the North American side and the Pacific side of the plate boundary. 0.8, the latest quake. A little bit of activity here as well, 1.3 Ocatella Wells region. No major swarms here, but still keeping an eye on the Southern California area. A little bit of swarming out here in the Nevada desert. Underneath this mountain range here. Some fairly shallow, some somewhat deep as well. Nevada's obviously got quite a bit of fault systems running through here. But nothing mentioned here on the map. There's some that run over here to the west and to the east, but this little activity is of some interest there. Really no main quake, just a couple ones. And some smaller quakes out there in a little swarm fashion just off of the 95. Yellowstone National Park, nothing showing up there, but I do want to double check for verification purposes, right? We do want to always verify that the data is accurate, and there's not a whole lot here. There's a couple small, very small spikes there on Yellowstone, but generally no measurable earthquake activity out here to speak of across the park for now. All right, mentioned this activity out here across the rest of the country. Let's see what else we got here across Hawaii. Of course, man, goodness, I need to show you guys this real quick. Hold on. Let's go over here to the USGS map and check out the inflation data. I want to show you guys as soon as it loads. By the way, the volcano is not erupting, still at a yellow and advisory. But look at this here. The deformation data is off the chart. We've seen a huge uplift here earlier today, and that's very visible here if you look on the 30-day chart. This is the past 30 days of inflation, vertical displacement. Look at that very sharp uptick here in inflation. That is something that we haven't really seen in the last 30 days, and quite frankly, I don't know if we've seen that at all that sharp. So something is coming here real soon. We got quite a bit of inflation there across this volcano, Kilauea volcano. No eruption. Earthquake activity has been hit and miss, as you can see there on the charts. Past 24 hours here showing some of that earthquake activity. We are, it's swollen down there. We are getting quite inflated underneath this area. The inflation is showing that. These tilt meters and whatnot, deformation data, all leading to something happening here soon. Right now, the big question is where? Where's it going to take place here? When we were this high, as far as the inflation goes, we've seen that earthquake or eruption take place here across the southwest rift zone here earlier this month. But that was a short-lived eruption. It halted. More than likely, everything solidified here underneath the area. adding to the overall dome of the surface, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So this thing could continue to swell, and eventually we're going to find a weak spot. Hopefully this whole thing doesn't blow, but we're eventually going to find a weak spot here. And the question is, where's it going to go? Where is this eruption or magma displacement going to head off to? We're getting close, I feel. But the key to watching this is going to be intense earthquake activity. There's a little bit here south of the caldera area that's of some interest here. The southwest rift zone was a little bit more over here where that most recent eruption took place. So maybe everything's sealed here now, and all the swelling is going to break through right here at the surface just south of the crater. Possible. That's a scenario. But I'm not quite sure on that yet. But we'll continue to watch earthquake activity, continue to watch the deformation data. We do have some activity down here as well across the Lilani Estates as well. This is where that 2018 eruption happened, right? A lot of fissure activity happened out here. Huge eruption. And that's always concern as well. But we haven't seen that magma displacement go down here yet. But keep an eye on it. New Zealand. I know New Zealand's been hopping with earthquakes lately. Still got a little swarming going on here, it looks like. More than a couple threes down here underneath the North Island area. So let's go check out the GeoNet servers here. Got a lot to cover, folks. So we're adding on fires and whatnot here to this update video. So I don't want to make it a huge long update, but we will cover fires here in Northern California at the end of this video. So quite a few threes specifically at this area on the map. Well, we can just pull up this latest 3.3 and you'll be able to see where that's at. North Island, up around the area offshore here. This is a little concerning because we do have quite a bit of earthquake activity here in this region. Quite a few threes, as you can see here on the map. All these are positioned in that location there. That's where that 4.4 struck as well. About 21 kilometers, 23 kilometers deep. And, you know, what sits off there? That is obviously the Hikurangi subduction zone off here. So that could be a sign here that things are getting ready to potentially produce some larger scale movement out here. If you've been watching here over the past, few weeks, past few months, North Island, New Zealand has seen a lot of deep activity underneath this area, and that's a major subduction zone here. Hasn't seen any full release here, and no telling how many hundreds of years. I can't remember if there's a date they put on it, but there's not a whole lot of historical data. But it does have the potential to produce a mega quake out here, and that would be ultimately devastating for the New Zealand area. So we got to watch that. As I've always said, we're living in quiet times right now in terms of large-scale earthquake movement at these major subduction zone areas. This is just one. So a lot of deep activity, a lot of threes stirring up there right now. If we go to the all magnitudes, we could see that there is way more than just, a couple there. If we go up here, let's bring this map. Specifically right around this area, we got a huge swarm of earthquake activity in this area. And, there's some of these deep earthquakes, 150 kilometers deep. It's been amplified here for the past few weeks. So we got to watch this. Got to keep an eye on the Hikurangi subduction zone, obviously. Not volcanic activity. This is not volcanic related. Let me see what the drums look like here. Excuse me. There's some of that earthquake swarming going on. Looks like it showed up pretty nicely here across the majority of these North Island stations here. This one looks fairly active. Black Stump Farm. Speaking of that, I need to add that back onto my live stream here. Right now I only have the New Zealand station here on the in between North and South Island area, so But yeah, anyway, keep an eye. North Island, all this movement could be leading to something further, right? You got a major subduction zone area offshore. Deep activity downstream. Now we're getting surface adjustment, somewhat surface adjustment, but more upstream here than the deep activity. Further out and about here, let's see what we got. 4.8 looks to be one of the latest quakes here, eastern Afghanistan. No new that's no surprise there. They always get earthquake activity out there. Let's see. Whoa, now that's a little crazy. That was a little bit too fast. Kind of got me dizzy there for a minute, and I didn't even do that. That's weird. All right. Make sure we're still live. Nobody's messing with the stream, hopefully. Yeah, that's a little suspicious there. I don't know. I still think this app here has a little funny business going on with it, but hey, what can I do? All right, 4.0, Middle America Trench here. A little bit of swarming going on in this area. Is going to be this position down here, just off the coast, maybe of El Salvador region, San Salvador, north of the Nicaragua area. Quite a bit of swarming coming in right now. Did see a 4-pointer over here. Further to the east, Jamaica, 4.0 coming in here underneath this region. Fairly shallow earthquake. Got to remember all this activity stretching out here is going to be this region right here. So when we see further activity and swarming going on across this area of the Middle America Trench, obviously that adds further strain here across this little tiny plate. It's called the Caribbean Plate. That can see elevated earthquake activity here. Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic area. And we've been seeing a lot of swarming here recently in this area, so it does look like it's filling in around this region. Is that one oddball earthquake in the Brazil area? This is a very shallow earthquake and a very rare earthquake out here as well, over here in this area of the South America region. That 4.3 doesn't look like we've seen anything else following that earthquake early this morning. We do have some further activity, obviously, up closer to the plate boundary. As you can see here underneath the Ecuador area, 4.6. And a couple other earthquakes up and down the Peru-Chile Trench. Not a whole lot going on. Got typical activity here across the Mediterranean, the rest of the Middle East and whatnot, but really not a whole lot across the eastern or the Atlantic Ocean. And, there was a little article put out here recently about 8.0 earthquakes, right? Why haven't we seen one recently? Because the average for an 8-pointer, we should at least see one every year, potentially. And we've gone, let's see here. How long have we gone since an 8-pointer? Let's go over here to the newest. Well, it looks like the last 8-pointer. Remember, we had like 3 8-pointers back in 2021. There they are. South Sandwich Islands, seen one in Alaska, and also the Kermadec Trench there. Kermadec Islands 8.1. That was a year of 3 8-pointers. So maybe that year of 3 8-pointers has put off the average for a little bit, because we should have seen an 8-pointer by now. 2021, we're looking at 3 years now with no 8-pointer. I guess the closest one we've seen this year is going to be, we really haven't seen anything major this year above 7.5. That's what I had out here, but we did see that 7.5 Japan area New Year's Day. They basically called this like a January 1st type of earthquake, but technically this is happened on the December 31st time frame. So, it's possible that we could be seeing an 8-pointer here soon when the averages kick up here, right? You look at averages throughout the years, and we should be seeing something. It's been 3 years now with no 8-pointers, but the question is, did those 3 8-pointers that 1 year, 2021, put off the average a little bit? That's a good question. But we'll have to see. Look at California just fused together here. The North American and the Pacific plate almost super glued. Well, probably not super glued, but it doesn't want to move. Eventually, when it does, it could be a big one out here. But it's the only area around a major plate boundary that hasn't seen any movement. I mean, it's very odd, at least as far as 7.5 and above goes. Yes, there was some 7-pointer and a 6-pointer, right? The Ridgecrest activity, but that wasn't even along the plate boundary. That was way off of it. So we are, about time. It's about time we should be seeing something out here soon. All right, let's see what we got here for space weather activity. Mellow. We are mellow. Welcome to the Mellow Tuesday night show, as far as space weather goes. Not a whole lot going on, and I called this a couple days ago. We're looking at 3712 degrading, and there's still a pretty decent separation here between these two areas of magnetic structure, and that will prevent any major flaring from occurring within this sunspot. Getting a little bit of chaotic looking structure up here in terms of magnetic complexity with this other sunspot here. This one looks a little bit more promising in terms of flaring than this region does. Doesn't matter if this sunspot is the size of, a large radius or a large circle here in the sun. If there's no complexity, we won't have any flaring going on. So you can have a super massive sunspot, 100 times the size of the Earth, but with no complexity, no flare. At least no, potential for some stronger flaring. This one's obviously flared a little bit, but this area right here is kind of capturing my eye a little bit. It is growing in complexity, and it does show quite a bit of closeness there. We're going to have to watch that one. That's 3713. It has grown quite rapidly throughout the day. That's going to be this area right here. It does look like it's flaring slightly. There's a little bit of flaring signature in the UV ray. Maybe it looks like a C2.6, so we'll watch that. Right now it shows 3712 as the beta gamma delta structure, the highest magnetic complex sunspot, but it's not looking like it. I'm more focused here on 3713. Overall threat shows 99% chance for a C flare, M flare 55, 10% for the X flare. No major roars in the forecast, folks. And 3697 here is, it's getting close. Look at that. You guys see that? 3697, formerly 3664. It will be renamed once it comes back here on the eastern limb for a return Earth-facing side of the sun trip here for a third time. It'd be named something else. Far as complexity, it's hard to tell. It does show, what looks like a large, considerable size sunspot out there still. Should be getting a look here at 3691, former sunspot 3691 here on the eastern limb pretty soon. Let's see if we got it. We don't have it. Well, maybe just right about here. I don't know if you guys can see that. Might have to break out a magnifier, but yeah, we'll see what happens here in the coming days. It does look like there was some type of CME kicked off far side from a filament eruption in the northern hemisphere. I did create a massive CME, not Earth directed, so we're not really expecting any type of solar weather activity here on Earth. No major roars in the forecast here for now, folks. But we'll continue to keep an eye on a couple different sunspots out here. Storm Prediction Center, not a huge severe weather threat over the next couple days. We are looking at a developing tropical system down here into the, let's go over here to the current storms. Potential tropical cyclone 1 developing there in the Gulf of Mexico. Beautiful Gulf of Mexico. Could be hitting the southern, extreme southern Texas area here. Looks like maybe Thursday night, late Thursday night, or late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. Tropical storm potentially. Not going to have a lot of time to ramp up, but really not expecting too much in terms of impacts from this potential tropical storm 1. They're really not forecasting too much in terms of intensity. Maybe up around the 45 knot area, so a slight little breeze coming in off the Gulf of Mexico there. Not really expecting much there at all. So, all right, so let's see what we got here. I was covering this earlier. Went out here to the area of Maxwell there in Colusa County to check out the sites fire, and it's grown. It's grown dramatically. At least right now, it looks like 15,565 acres. The orange here, now this is kind of interesting. We're looking at the fire back building on itself here because we've had a wind switch from the north. It does look like it's out of the west right now. You can see these little, what look like little comets or little things on the screen indicating wind direction. That is actually flowing down here into the valley, and I think we're going to be covered with quite a bit of smoke overnight here in the Willows area, Maxwell area as well. But the fire itself looks like it's starting to burn back in on itself here from where it came from, burning everything that it didn't get a chance to burn. Still obviously a pretty serious condition out there. Here is the nighttime view by a staff reporter. I was thinking about going out there covering this, but I didn't feel like getting eaten by mosquitoes out there in Maxwell. But obviously still quite active as far as that major wildfire goes. Only at 5% containment. Earlier, this was actually at 15%. Now it dropped down to 5% here on the containment, which is a little odd. But it does look like, there's some new fire development here. If you look at the legend, the fire detection system is going to be in the red. That's newer fire. Orange is going to indicate older fire out here. So it looks like we're getting some new activity out here on the extreme eastern edge here of this fire line. And there's some foothill area out here that could burn as well. A lot of dry vegetation, but the majority is burning specifically in this area here, just outside of the Ladoga area. Still a pretty large fire, and if you look at the Northern California area in general, let's see, let me get off of that. That's still actually one of the main fires out here in terms of acreage. It does look like it's catching up to this post fire down south here near the Grapevine, which is at 31% containment, 15,690 acres. So this fire I was on earlier is catching up, and it's going to be interesting to see what takes place here. If it's just going to burn out itself here. Fortunately, the wind has died down a little bit, but there's still quite a bit of mountain ranges out here as far as fuel right here in the foothills that could get burnt all the way down here to the west side of the valley near sites. Here's sites down here, but they call this thing the sites fire. Hopefully that's not a premonition here, but you think they would call it maybe the Ladoga fire or something, but yeah, they call it the sites fire. Interesting. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. I may go back out here tomorrow and see what I can catch for visuals in terms of photography and media and whatnot. But yeah, it's hopefully they get this under control. Far as, well, we don't have any rain in the forecast, obviously. We got cooler temperatures out here. There's a low pressure system out here, but that's not going to last for long. I know the people out there in the eastern coast have been baking out there, but things are going to change. It does look like high pressure is going to build back in here to the west coast. Not significantly, but we're going to cook a little bit out here coming up next week. I don't see any major pattern change out here, but it does look like the East Coast does have a little bit of relief coming out that way a little bit later on. Still quite warm across this area. Goodness. For tomorrow, you know, got 80s and 90s out there across the eastern portion of the country. Fairly seasonable conditions out here in my area of the states. Outside of Chico, going to be 88, getting up into the low 90s, which is pretty decent. A little bit later on towards next week, you know, things change. We start to cook out here in California once again, and a little bit of relief out here. So it's not going to stay super hot out there across the eastern portion of the country forever. Not a whole lot of rain accumulation out here for California, as you can see, next 10 days or so. Absolutely nothing. Quite a bit up there in the northern plains and the upper Midwest area. Bunch of tropical moisture down here in the south. So we'll just take what Mother Nature has in store for us, I guess. That's all we can do right now. All right, what do we got here? Mendocino, California, showing a little bit of earthquake activity down here. It looks like a little spike of an earthquake coming in. Not for sure how big it is, but something going on up here maybe. All right, aside from that, folks, have yourself a wonderful Tuesday night. We'll catch you guys back out here in the morning. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, please. It helps us out a lot if you click that like button. Click that like bucket, Click that like button. That would help us out 100% there. And we appreciate all the support here on this channel. And we try to, you know, always provide the most factual information out here, without the fear mongering. You know, it's something I try not to do. I don't like to fear monger at all. You know, but what can you do when you have a sleeping giant offshore here? You know, you just gotta keep an eye on the data, watch the data coming in, and just see, you know, see how the trends happen. There's no doubt there's been a lot of tremor activity out here recently, with some suspicious earthquake activity upstream and also down in Northern California. It's a sign, you know, of quite a bit of stress out here against the Cascadia, and eventually it will have a big earthquake. That's not fear mongering. That's just science. That is the facts, and we just got to make sure we are prepared for the big one out here, because it's coming. All right. Have a good night, folks. We'll catch you guys back out here in the morning. This looks like just a little bitty spike there on the Mendocino station. Probably a little one-pointer. Nothing coming in up here yet, but who knows? It may not even show up. Have a good night, folks. See you tomorrow.